Welcome. First of all, welcome. This is Unsolicited Perspectives. I'm your host, Bruce Anthony, here to lead the conversation on important events and topics that are shaping today's society. Join the conversation or follow us wherever you get your audio podcast. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to watch our video podcast. Rate, review, like, comment, share. Share with your friends, share with your family, hell, even share with your enemies. On today's episode, I'll be doing another segment of Ripped from the Headlines. Then I'll be talking about childhood trauma. And then I'll be talking about why you should never come to me for advice, because I'm going to be real blunt. But that's enough for the intro. Let's get to the show. As I get older, we are starting to lose our entertainers, people that we looked up to, admired, either their artwork or for their academic work, what have you. As I get older, we're starting to lose them, and we're losing them at a rapid pace. Just last week, we lost James Earl Jones. And then it was announced earlier this week that we lost John Amos. John Amos, you guys might know, is the father from Good Times. He was the older Kunta Kinte in Roots. He was Mr. McDowell in Coming to America. He was also one of the police officers in a movie that I like to call The Players Club. No, that's what it's called. I don't like to call it. I call it that because that's what it's called. But anyway, he's been in a lot of stuff. He was in Sweet Sweetback's Badass Song, one of the first blaxploitation movies. Famous actor. And it was announced this week that he passed away and he died from congestive heart failure. It was announced this week. However, he actually died August 21st this year. So a little bit of the backstory. There was a delay in announcing John Amos's death due to family controversies and communication issues. His son, Kelly Christopher, also known as KC Almost, announced the death on October 1st, 2024, nearly 2 months after John Amos passed away on August 21st, 2024. This delay led to some family disputes as his daughter, Shannon Almost, claimed that she only learned about her father's death through media reports. Okay. Look, me and my brother and sister have issues from time to time. But if either one of our parents passed away, we would let the other one know immediately. Now, John Amos's kids was out here being petty and not letting them know when their daddy passed. And what's crazy about him, he's such a famous actor and has been in so many important stuff. They didn't let the world know for almost 2 months. I don't know. As Bernie Mac would say, that's crazy to me, but there's more to the story, so let me get to it. The situation obviously has raised some concerns and questions about the circumstances surrounding his passing and the family's communication during this difficult time. Here's where it gets interesting. Prior to his death, there were allegations of elder abuse and financial exploitation, and Shannon Almost had previously launched a GoFundMe campaign alleging that her father was a victim of elder abuse. The same Shannon who found out her father passed away when her brother KC announced October 1st that their dad had passed away from heart failure. The only problem was, once again, I reiterate, John Amos died August 21st. She had no idea her daddy was dead, and she had previously brought up elder abuse, going to a GoFundMe to raise money because supposedly John Amos was broke. Okay, all of this is coming together, leading to more and more questions and controversies. A friend had to bring this up to me. I was just sad that Daryl McDowell from Coming to America had passed away. The colonel from West Wing had passed away. Kunta Kinte had passed away when he raised up Kizzy and said, "Kizzy, behold." That's what I was mourning, only to find out that he passed away when I was in Atlanta partying up with my sister. We was partying, not knowing that John Amos had passed away. The reason why we didn't know is because His son, KC, wasn't letting people know. Shannon Amos, the other family and other family members have not ruled out a possibility of foul play. They have raised concerns about the conditions surrounding the final days and the fact that he was cremated, which they fear might have been done to avoid any potential investigation. I'm going to just run through this once again, because I don't know if y'all are really hearing me. A famous actor passes away. Nobody announces that he passed away until 6 weeks after he passed away. Before he passed away, even in August, his daughter was trying to do a GoFundMe to raise money for him and his health issues. And throughout that there might be some elder abuse, because why is her daddy broke? That don't make no sense. Not only do they not, KC, we talk about KC, his son, not only does KC not let people know that his daddy passed away 6 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago, he also cremated the body. Now, some of y'all got siblings out there, and a sibling relationship is always really interesting. You grow up in an environment where you guys are absolutely growing up together. You're in the same household most of the time. Sometimes you're not. But let's just say that you grow up in dynamics knowing each other, growing up together, right? And things happen. You know, me and my siblings have had beef. And contrary to what people believe, there were times where me and my sister didn't really get along. We get along great now. But there were times where she was absolutely disgusted at me and didn't want to even have anything to do with me. These things happen. But no matter how bad a situation might have been between us, if our parents had died, we would have let each other know about it. So it's a crazy scenario to think about, that this man didn't let his siblings know, and that Shannon found out that her father passed away because it was announced online in the news. That's how you find out. So let's take the fact that, okay, they got beef. Let's take away the fact that he passed away 6 weeks prior. Okay? What if you found out that your daddy or your mama, your pappy or your mammy, passed away through the news? Now, this is not something that hasn't happened before. You know, you got your TMCs, outlets like that, your entertainment, it used to be Entertainment Tonight, outlets like that would learn firsthand about a celebrity passing away and kind of let the world know, and their loved ones would know when the world knew. But that's crazy. That is crazy. That's tough to even fathom. But sometimes that happens, right? But that shouldn't happen because your brother decided that he wasn't going to tell you that your daddy passed away. Shannon got legitimate beef. And, you know, this was brought to my attention from one of my conspiracy theory friends. However, when you look at all of the factors that are surrounding this story, and the fact that he postponed letting anybody know, even the world know, for 6 weeks, and cremated the body, and there was already a pre-accusation before any of this happened of elder abuse. And now there can't really be any true investigation because there is no body. Yo, KC seemed like he was doing something real shady. And I'm sorry, I'm trying to look at it from his perspective, and I just can't. I don't understand it. It looks real shady. And let me tell you, Daryl McDowell, Kunta Kinte, James Evans deserved a better send-off than what he got. But speaking of send-offs, I'm not done from the headlines. I want to talk about Tina Peters. I bet you're asking yourself, who the hell is Tina Peters, Bruce? Don't worry, I'm going to tell you who the hell Tina Peters is. So Tina Peters is the former Mesa County clerk in Colorado. She was recently sentenced to 9 years in prison. She was convicted on multiple counts, including attempted to influence a public servant, conspiracy to commit criminal impersonation, first-degree official misconduct, violation of duty, and failure to comply with Colorado's Secretary of State. And I bet you're all wondering, Bruce, still, I don't understand who the hell Tina Peters is. And why are you telling me about Tina Peters? Don't worry, because I'm about to break that down right now. The charges stem from her involvement in a scheme to breach voting system data in her county. Peters allowed unauthorized access to the county's election system and deceived officials about the identity of the person accessing that data. The individual was an affiliate with Mike Lindell, a prominent promoter of false claims about the 2020 election. Yeah, that's who Tina Peters is. Tina Peters was a county clerk that was trying to manipulate the election, gave people access to the voting machines that were not supposed to have access, pretended that she was somebody else to cover up her crimes, and got caught. This is a person that's going to jail for 9 years, all based on the big lie. You think Trump's going to pardon her? You think it was worth it? You think she thinks it was worth it? I'm glad you asked that question, because I'm going to answer it right now by notes from the court proceedings. During her sentencing, Peters showed no remorse and continued to defend her actions, which the judge noted as a significant factor in her sentencing. The case has been a high-profile example of the consequences of tampering with the election process. So, okay, hold on. That's what Trump and some of his acolytes have been saying for a long time, that there was election interference, right? That people were tampering with the election, that it caused him to lose. Wait a minute, hold on. It caused him to lose? The people that were tampering in the election overwhelmingly were his people. And he still lost. And for their loyalty, like Tina Peters, like many of the January 6ers, they're in jail. You know where Trump is? Eating McDonald's, sitting on this gold toilet. He's going to be all right. This whole idea that he's going to jail, that man ain't going to jail. That man might be reelected to president. And all the people that have bent over backwards, that have tried to prop up his big lie, jail time. Jail is for real. Hey, look, let me tell y'all something. I'm grown. I'm grown. I don't want to go to jail. There's certain things about my life that I'm very particular about. You know, my food is one thing. I'm very particular about my nutrition and my diet. I'm very particular about my bathroom. I've discussed my bathroom situation before on the show. I got to have a bidet. I don't feel right if I don't have a bidet. Got to have me a bidet. Got to have me some wet wipes. You know, got to have me a clean toilet, a clean tub, a clean shower, a clean sink, a clean floor to the bathroom. I tell you what I damn sure don't want. That's my sink attached to my toilet, and that's what you get in jail. I don't want that. That's not the life that I want to live. So there is no amount of politician that I'm going to ride for so hard that I'm going to put myself in that predicament. I can deal with being by myself. I actually enjoy being by myself. I don't know if I'd be able to deal with sleeping on a twin bed. I have a queen size bed, and that barely fits me because I like to move around when I sleep, but that's a different story. I need my special thread sheet count, and I need my multiple pillows to build my little fort so that I can sleep properly and be surrounded. I'm not going to prison. It's not a whole bunch of things that I'll actually go to prison for. That isn't my fault. Like, I can't be enticed to do something that could lead me to go to prison. I've done things in my life that could have led me to go to prison, you know, drinking and driving things and that such. I could easily go to prison. I don't want to go to prison. I'm not going to voluntarily break the law based on a lie. And here's the crazy thing. As Peters is being prosecuted, as she's in the court case, as she's trying to defend herself, at least most time defendants start to lie to get a lenient sentence. Nah, she's being defiant to the bitter end and says she would do it all over again. And that's what caused her to get an even more longer sentence that she would have got if she had just been just slightly, a little, a smidge contrite. Hey, look, let me tell y'all something. I was telling somebody earlier today, the Republican Party is not the Republican Party anymore. It's the party of Trump. Everybody, every Republican that had been an established Republican that has gone against Trump has disappeared. They're out of the Republican Party. Liz Cheney, do not agree with her politics. Not a fan of her as pertaining to her politics. I'm not a fan of her. I don't know her as a person, so I don't know if I would be a fan or not. You know, you can only know somebody a little bit through the news, so I'm not going to judge her as a person. I do not agree with her politics. She don't look like the type of person I'd want to have shots of tequila with. She don't look like that's her get down. She was a legacy in the Republican Party. She didn't believe the big lie. She's out of the Republican Party. The only person that's in the Republican Party that's from the old guard of Republicans that hasn't fallen to Trumpism is Mitt Romney. And I think that's just because he is such a locked in figure in his area that, you know, he can, no, they're not going to fall a victim. His supporters are not going to fall a victim to Trumpism. Everybody else falling a victim to Trumpism. And what does Trumpism really giving people? You know, like, when you think about it, what does it really give? It gives you false bravado because he gives you a lot of false bravado. Okay, you know, hey, I like Superman. Superman gives me false bravado. He's not a real character. He's not a real person. And I know what you're saying. Well, Trump is a real person. Man, his personality is not real. That's false bravado. He keeps. There's a difference between people talking tough and being tough. He's not tough. He talks tough, but he's not tough. Typically, the loudest people in the room are the weakest people in the room. And he is the loudest person that I have ever seen in a room. That lets me know that he's pretty weak. Easily manipulated because he's not that bright. He thinks he's bright. Nothing worse than a person that thinks they're smarter than they actually are. He's one of those people. And Tina Peters is paying the price for it. Okay. Hey, look, all y'all people out there that's riding for Trump, God bless you. You know, when it's all said and done and you're on those final roads of wherever that road leads you to Trumpism, I'm not even going to say I told you so. I'm just going to look at you, shake my head, and walk off because your dumb ass should have known better. And that's just ripped from the headlines. Rest in peace, John Amos, Kunta Kinte, Mr. McDowell. I was with my bestie this weekend and we were watching the Vince McMahon documentary, having snacks. I talked about it on the sibling happy hour, having snacks, having a good time. And as I'm watching this documentary, I'm not going to get into the specifics of the documentary. There's a million and one podcasts and TV shows and talking about it. If y'all want me to get into the details, hey, shoot me an email, shoot me a message. I'll do a whole show about Vincent Kennedy and McMahon and what I learned from this documentary. But one of the major takeaways that I got from this documentary is how much childhood trauma Vince McMahon had. To give you a quick synopsis of his history, he grew up in rural North Carolina. Poor man, didn't know who his real father was, or his real father didn't come into the picture until he was 12 years old. Up until he was 12 years old, he was raised by a stepfather. They were poor. His stepfather used to beat the hell out of him. There was some insinuation that his mother sexually assaulted him. You know, they hinted at incest. And so at 12, Vince's biological father, Vincent Kennedy McMahon Sr., comes into his life, starts introducing Vince to New York upscale living because his father was a wrestling promoter and he wanted nothing much more than to be like his biological father. Here's the problem with his biological father. Everything that he did, everything that Vince McMahon Jr. ever did was not good enough for his biological father. Never gave him a compliment, never really even said, I love you. He only told Vince Jr., the owner, former owner of WWE, he only told Vince Jr. that he loved him the day before Vincent Sr. died. Vince Jr. says in the documentary that that was the greatest day in his life because he finally got love from his father. And I was just thinking to myself, because Vince McMahon is wrapped up in a lot of controversy right now, a lot of controversy, sexual assault allegations. You know, he's had multiple allegations of abusive working conditions throughout his tenure as the owner and creator and leader of World Wrestling Entertainment now, but what many of you people out there known as World Wrestling Federation. And in that documentary, it also showed his relationship to his kids. And I'll get into that a little bit later. But what I realized by watching it is that Vincent Kennedy Jr. has a lot of childhood trauma. And the way he deals with it, because I was asked in the documentary, you know, how do you deal with all the stuff that happened in your past? He was like, it's the past. You just forget about it and move on. And I know that that's not a real thing. There are going to be people out there that are going to, specifically men. But one of my ex-girlfriends had something really, really traumatic happen to her. And she said, well, I just move on. I just don't think about it. And I was like, but you haven't moved on, because there are issues that go on between me and you that I know are directly related to this. And I don't have nothing, like I didn't do anything wrong. It's because you haven't healed that trauma. And so I'm looking at this documentary, and Vince has not dealt with his childhood trauma, will not acknowledge it, and it has affected him throughout his entire life. This is a topic I talk about a lot. Oftentimes when you guys are listening and watching the show, me and my sister will shout out childhood trauma, you know, because we know through therapy, because we are either been in therapy or currently in therapy. Therapy is important. Going to therapy doesn't make you weak. Going to therapy makes you stronger because you're addressing the things that are hindering you from being the best person that you are. If you think that you're the best person that you are, you're not. You can be better. And dealing with past traumas can help you be better. But watching this documentary, I was saying, okay, he wasn't dealing with his past trauma. And a lot of people out there do not deal with their past trauma. More specifically, childhood trauma, because childhood trauma shapes our adulthood. So what did I do? I went into psychology books, Psychology Today, Mental Health Online, Mental Health Today, and I drew up a basic outline, and I'm going to present to you variations of childhood trauma, how they can affect you in adulthood, and more importantly, going back to the documentary, talking about Vincent Kennedy McMahon, but also some of my friends that have kids or people out there that have kids that haven't dealt with their childhood trauma, how that affects you in parenting. This is a PSA for a lot of adults. I've dated a lot of women. I have a lot of friends. Because I've had therapy, I can see signs in people of their reactions to certain situations and say that your reaction to this is not about this. It has to do with something else. And 9 times out of 10, it's childhood trauma. So childhood trauma refers to a scary, dangerous, violent, or life-threatening event that happens to a child, which is basically 0 from birth to 18 years of age. This type of event may also happen to someone the child knows, and the child is impacted as a result of seeing or hearing about the other person being hurt or injured. Traumatic events can include psychological, physical, or sexual abuse, community or school violence, witnessing or experiencing domestic violence, natural disasters or terrorism, commercial sexual exploitation, sudden or violent loss of a loved one, refugee or war experiences, military family related stressors, i.e., deployment, parental loss, or injury, physical or sexual assault, neglect, serious accidents, or life threatening illnesses. These experiences can leave lasting mental and physical effects on the child, impacting their daily lives and their development. Let me repeat that. These experiences can leave lasting mental and physical effects on a child, impacting their daily lives and their development. Recognizing the signs of traumatic stress and providing appropriate support is crucial for helping children cope and heal. All right, let's take you guys personally out of the equation. Some of you people that are listening and watching are parents, aunts, uncles, cousins, brothers, sisters of people that you know have experienced all one or maybe even all of those things. If it hinders your development as a person and it's never addressed, how could you possibly be a well-adjusted human being? But, okay, y'all can say to me, but Bruce, you know, I feel like I'm pretty well adjusted, even though I had those childhood traumas. I'm living my life just well. Okay. All right. Well, childhood trauma can have a profound and lasting effects on a person's mental health well into adulthood. Here are just a few key points. I'm going to give you 6 of them. Okay. Point number 1, increased risk of mental health disorders. Adults who experience childhood trauma are at a higher risk of developing mental health conditions such as depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, and substance abuse disorders. Okay, how many people out there have a friend, a family member, a loved one, or even them themselves have depression and anxiety? You think that just comes from nowhere? You think, oh, my life is just depressing and anxious. I'm just anxious all the time. Well, that can be true, right? Because look, life out here is hard. It's hard out here for a pimp. Life out here is hard. But a lot of times, especially with depression and anxiety, and some of it is biological, there is absolutely chemical imbalances, but it can be enhanced, those chemical imbalances, due to trauma. All these things can lead to issues in adulthood. Another one, emotional dysregulation. Trauma can lead to difficulties in managing emotions, resulting in mood disorders, including bipolar disorder and major depression. Not just depression, but major depression. And there is levels to depression and anxiety, right? I have generalized anxiety. My brother and sister have a different form of anxiety that needs to be, well, they say that maybe I need to be medicated as well. I don't know. Until, a therapist says we need to put you on medication. Now, I'm not going to go on no medication. I think I cope pretty well. But let me tell you, I have a lot of these issues that they talk about increased mental health disorders. I got that anxiety. I have it severely. I have depression. And I be drinking, y'all. I be drinking. Now, I've learned that the drinking is due to boredom. But why am I so bored all the time? Why is that? I'm in therapy trying to figure all of that out myself. But not only can it lead to major depression, individuals may also experience heightened anxiety, social anxiety, and obsessive compulsive disorders. Look, it doesn't just affect you mentally and emotionally, and it can affect you physically. Chronic pain and physical health issues. There is a strong link between childhood trauma and chronic pain conditions, headaches, gastrointestinal problems, stomach issues. Trauma can lead to permanent changes in the central nervous system, making individuals more vulnerable to physical health problems. Look, let me tell y'all something right now. I know for a fact my anxiety messes up my stomach. My stomach is always jacked up. It is always, you know how you just chilling and you kicking it and your stomach make noises? I have been in the house when somebody else is in the house. When you by yourself, you just get used to the noises. You don't even think about it. I've been in my house. And somebody else has been in my house saying, "You good?" I'm like, "What the hell are you talking about? Am I good?" "Your stomach is rumbling. Are you hungry?" "No, I just said I'm not hungry." "Well, what's going on?" I don't know. It's my anxiety. My anxiety is permeating through my body, creating problems. Like people that get stiff necks. When you get a stiff neck and you pull something in your neck, that's because you're carrying tension in your traps. It's not actually your neck, it's your traps. Your traps are connected to your neck, but it's not actually your neck, it's your trap, right? You're creating tension in there and it's caused something to lock up. Stress related to childhood trauma. Just letting y'all know. What can it do in relationships? It can create attachment and relationship issues. Trauma can affect a person's ability to form healthy relationships. Adults with history of childhood trauma may struggle with trust, experience toxic romantic relationships, and have difficulties in maintaining friendships. Now, I will say that I do have problems in relationships. I don't know if it's due to my childhood trauma, but maybe. Partly it was when I was younger, I was really selfish. But I do absolutely have trust issues, and I do experience toxic relationships with people that aren't necessarily toxic. Just the relationship can become toxic. And I think it's anxiety fills the relationship that creates these scenarios where people act outside of themselves. Childhood trauma. Increased risk of chronic illness. Childhood trauma is associated with a higher risk of developing chronic illnesses like diabetes, heart disease, and obesity later in life. So this all kind of makes sense. If you're depressed and anxious, most of the time that leads to eating poorly, not working out because you're not motivated to get out there and do it, which means that you're going to eat bad, get diabetes, get heart disease, and kill over and die. I mean, I'm going to the extreme here, but not really. What I'm trying to point out is by not dealing with the issues that you think, well, I moved on, I'm past it. So much time has passed. I've I don't need to deal with that anymore. That was 30 years ago. Sits with you for the rest of your life. Don't ever think by not addressing something or thinking that this theory that time heals all wounds is the biggest con that there ever is. Work heals wounds. Time just doesn't heal wounds. Time makes makes it feel not as painful as when you were in the moment. But that doesn't mean that that chip on your soul that was taken away from you through that traumatic experience isn't still there. Creating distance from an event can make it so the pain isn't as severe, but you didn't heal from it. Last but not least, not dealing with your childhood trauma can lead to this in adulthood: behavioral issues. Individuals may engage in self-sabotaging behaviors like substance abuse and have a higher likelihood of suicidal thoughts. Understanding these impacts is crucial for providing appropriate support and interventions to help individuals heal from their traumatic experiences. So I just reeled off what childhood trauma is, how it can affect you in your adulthood. You know, there are some people that still, after all of this, like Vincent Kennedy McMahon, and I know like millennials specifically and Gen Z is getting better with the fact that, I got to talk about my problems to a professional, not just to my friends, to a professional, because what it is that's going on is affecting me. And I need to deal with it so that I can have a better life. Who wants to be depressed? Who wants to be anxious? Who wants to have high diabetes? Who wants to have high blood pressure? Who wants to have chronic pain? Who wants to have physical illness? Who wants that? So if you're going through that, there's a reason why you're going through it. You can go to the doctor. The doctor may say, "Hey, I don't really know what the hell is causing your back pain." Maybe take your ass to a therapist. I don't know. Talk about your life. There are professionals out there that study in this, and they can break things down. Somebody to open up and talk to, and I'm not talking about your priest or your pastor. They're not trained, right? You wouldn't go to some person that on the street to go get health advice, would you? Unless that preacher or pastor has a degree, multiple, in psychology, preferably a master's or doctorate, they can't help you except for kind of like surface level stuff, common sense stuff. To get to that real work, you got to go to a therapist. I highly recommend people out here and go to a therapist and get yourself right. And people that is listening to me talking about, man, Bruce don't know what he's talking about. You the one I'm talking about. This is all for you specifically. Because it'd be the main ones that talk about I'm just fine that don't be fine and don't want to admit it to themselves. There is nothing taken away from my manhood. Nothing that anybody will challenge me on. I dare you. I dare you to challenge my manhood to my face. Say to see what I don't take from you. But for me inside myself, my manhood is not challenged by going to talk to somebody about my problems, a professional, paying somebody to talk about my problems because I want to be better. Each day I strive to be a better person. That's the reason why I surround myself with people who think like me at a higher level and people who don't think like me so that I can learn. I want to see multiple perspectives in life so that I could be better. If you are a mechanic and they came out with a new way to fix cars, you wouldn't at least go hear what they have to say? If there was a new teaching method, not this new math stuff. I like old math personally. But there is a new teaching method. You won't at least go see what they're talking about? You people out here constantly go to Fandango or Reddit or what's the other places that you can go to? I know YouTube is going to correct me. Other places you can go to get recommendations on TV shows because other people rated it. Rotten Tomatoes. Y'all people take recommendations from random strangers that you don't know before you decide to watch a television show. You can't go take recommendations from a licensed professional, somebody that has their doctorate, somebody who went to school longer than you went to school to help you learn about yourself. Look at how stupid that sounds. Think about that. I have friends who swear up and down, hey, that show got lowly rated on Rotten Tomatoes. I'm not going to watch it. That's what you're basing it on and won't go to therapy. Well, take what the masses are saying as gospel and won't go find out for themselves. It's the reason why we have people like Tina Peters and the January Sixers in jail. You've got to go search out different ways of thinking and dealing with stuff and not be so stubborn to think that you got it all figured out, even when dealing with yourself. But I brought this all up because once again, as I was watching the Vincent McMahon documentary, I saw that the relationship he had with his father is the same relationship that he had with his children. And this is the message that I'm trying to get across to a lot of parents out there. If you don't deal with your issues, you absolutely pass your issues on to your children. You think children don't know or aren't aware of what you're going through. Children are way more perceptive than parents give them credit for. It's like you become a parent and you completely forget what it was like being a kid. Completely forget about it. And you do the stuff that a lot of times your parents did. That's called generational trauma. You got to break those curses. But some of y'all out there are saying, no, my issues are my issues. I'm not passing them on to my kids. Bruce, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. You don't have children. So how are you going to give me advice on how to raise children? Well, I was somebody's child once. Well, technically, I'm still somebody's child. I'm just not a child anymore. But I was somebody's child. And my parents know, because we've had these conversations, that some of the things that they had that they weren't particularly happy about in their personality have been passed on to us. The three of us, me, my brother, and sister. Luckily, for the most part, we acknowledge it or we point it out in each other, and all three of us have been in therapy, so we're working on it. But how does childhood trauma, or how can it impact a person's approach to parenting? Well, it can impact in a variety of ways. Attachment issues. Individuals who experience trauma may struggle to form secure attachments with their children. They might find it challenging to provide the emotional stability and security that their children need. I am not going to throw one of my friends under the bus. But one time, one of my friends said that they connect through their child through a particular activity. That activity, my friend, the parent, really enjoyed, and assumes that the child enjoys it as well. And it may absolutely be the case. The child could absolutely enjoy that activity. Another possibility is that child looks up to their parent and knows that that's a way that they can spend time with their parent and does the activity just to make a connection. Because, not saying that this friend in particular, but saying in general, kids just love their parents and want to be connected to them in some way. So kids will just, what do my parents like? I'm going to like what my parents like, because then I can spend time with them. Why can you only spend time with your child when it's something that you enjoy? That's questions you got to ask yourself. Emotional regulation. Parents with a history of trauma may have difficulty managing their emotions, leading to inconsistent or unpredictable responses to their children's needs. This can create an unstable environment for their child. So a lot of people are going to be like, well, my child doesn't have an unstable environment. There's multiple ways that you can have an unstable environment. You can have an unstable environment physically. You can have an unstable environment mentally. You can have an unstable environment emotionally. A child can feel unsafe. That's the worst feeling in the world. People listening to this, do you ever like feeling unsafe? Children feel that way. And a lot of times they have this emotion and don't even know how to express it to their parents, right? Emotions are complicated. Kids don't know how to express that. Watch the movies Inside and Inside Out 2. Kids don't know how to express these emotions. These emotions are complex. Hell, most of you adults don't even know how to express these emotions. That's the reason why you have emotional dysregulation. Overcompensation or overprotection. Some parents may become overly controlling or protective in an attempt to prevent their children from experiencing similar traumas. This can hinder the child's development or independence and resilience. So, you went through some trauma as a child and you try to shield your child from experiencing the world. We're seeing that a lot, especially with the banning of books. Like, I don't feel like my child should have to be addressed by this and shouldn't have to deal with this. Well, they're out in the public, right? I mean, like I said, children are very perceptive. They can see the world. It's better to explain it, to try to give them some understanding than to shield them from it or protect them from it, because all you're doing is hampering their development as a person. And I thought the number one job of a parent is to raise well-adjusted adults. I don't know. This is just what psychology and doctors and mental health providers are saying. I'm just repeating what they're saying. Sometimes parents can reenact trauma. In times of stress, parents may unconsciously reenact patterns from their traumatic experiences, such as using harsh discipline or withdrawing emotion. Yeah, we've done that. Spanking is one of the most barbaric things, and it doesn't really help the child learn why they shouldn't have done what they did. 9 times out of 10, unless it's just a badass kid, 9 times out of 10, you can sit down and explain to a kid why what they did was wrong. But most of the time, parents overreact because of fear of the child hurting themselves. So you overreact. You could have killed yourself. Okay, yes, they didn't kill themselves. Just explain to them how they could have. Try to be calm. Explain to them why they shouldn't do the next thing. The worst thing that my mother ever did, and me and her still argue about this all the time. She would say, "Don't do that." I would ask the very simple question, why? Not because I was being a smartass, because I genuinely am just a curious person and I want to know why. Why shouldn't I do that? Because I said so was her response. Worst response ever. Because you know what I'm going to do? Since you're not going to tell me, I'm going to figure it out. Some children aren't like that. Some children aren't curious, and every child is different. There's no manual to raise children, right? Because you can have multiple children come from the same two people and have completely different personalities. But you got to be able to read your children, understand your children. And once again, if you got childhood trauma, you might reenact that trauma and you're not even realizing it. Hypervigilance. Trauma survivors often experience hypervigilance, which can make them overly anxious about their children's safety and well-being. This constant state of alertness can be exhausting and affect their ability to parent effectively. I have a friend whose mother was just a hoverer, and my friend is severely anxious all of the time. And as she told me stories of her growing up and how her mother still calls her every morning, and if she doesn't answer at the time that she calls, her mother jumps into a panic. So that means she jumps into a panic and she misses that call from her mother. These are things that see, when I tell people, hey, look, you gotta make sure your stuff is in order before you have kids, because you can pass this on down to them. This is the stuff that I'm talking about. Another impact in approaching parenting when people have childhood trauma is difficulty trusting. Trauma can lead to trust issues, making it hard for parents to trust others, including their children. This can result in strained relationships and communication problems. Okay, I'll tell a story. My father graduated college very early. He was 16 years old, and his birthday is also in September. So that means that he was in college, not at 17, at 16 years old. He didn't do too well because that was a shock to his environment. He lived in a controlled environment with my grandfather being relatively strict from the stories that I heard. So he didn't do too well in college. Me being the first child of his, he immediately equated the fact that because he didn't do well, that I wouldn't do well. And that wasn't the case. I excelled in college. I excelled at being away from everybody. But he projected that on me. He didn't trust himself when he was in college, so he didn't trust me when I was in college. Me going through that made it easier for my brother and sister when they went to college. But that was a real thing. He fought me tooth and nail about the colleges that I wanted to go to. I couldn't go too far away. He would always say, "You're going to flunk out." And I'm like, "Where are you getting this from? Like, why am I?" Because he had flunked out. So he automatically didn't trust me because he didn't trust himself when he was younger. That was passed on. Postpartum depression. Women who have experienced childhood trauma may be more susceptible to postpartum depression, which can affect their ability to bond with and care for their infants. So the most important thing is understanding these impacts is crucial, providing support and interventions to help parents heal and develop healthier parenting practices. I just want people to be good parents out there. So as I was watching this documentary, I wondered to myself, because Vince McMahon's kids, Shane and Stephanie, have kids. He's a grandfather. And I wonder, Did they correct this childhood trauma that obviously that they were faced with growing up with their father who had childhood trauma from his childhood, generational trauma? And I wonder what their kids are like. If you were out there and you experience any one of those things that I listed that can cause childhood trauma, and you never dealt with it, and you think you're still good, just talk to a professional. Maybe you are, but maybe you're not. And isn't that question enough for you to go and check for yourself, especially when dealing with your kids? I don't know. Just a food for thought. Speaking of my father, I gave him a compliment, a backhanded compliment the other day. On my birthday, he gave me a piece of advice that I couldn't acknowledge on my birthday. I couldn't hear it. The reason why I couldn't hear it is because of his presentation. My dad has always been very blunt. Doesn't really give advice with kid gloves. He's gotten a hell of a lot better since when I was a kid. But in this particular instance, he didn't really handle the advice with kid gloves. He just kind of gave it bluntly and matter of factly, and I didn't receive it. I didn't receive it until actually about 6 weeks later when I finally saw the advice that he was trying to give me. And I went to my dad on his birthday. We were having a conversation, and I said, "I want to thank you. And this thank you is going to come. You're going to think it's a backhanded thank you, but it's a legitimate thank you. You gave me some advice, and it was good advice. It was good advice. The reason why I didn't receive it at that time is because of the way you gave it to me. But it was good advice, and I appreciate it." And he was like, "Yeah, I got that problem. Sometimes when I'm giving advice, I just say things and I'm like, why didn't I say it like that? Like, what am I talking about? Like, why would I do that?" And I just say these things. And I said, "Oh, I know the reason why, because I'm the same way." He's like, What is it? Why do you think that is?" I said, "Well, Dad, you're really intelligent. You're extremely intelligent. And sometimes you see things as something that's so obvious that you can't comprehend how another person can't understand it. So you give it blunt and matter of factly because you just can't comprehend the fact that they can't comprehend it." He was like, "Son, I think you're right." I was like, "Yeah, I know." Because I used to always tell my father, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And guess what? As I've gotten older, I'm doing the exact same thing. Everybody out here listening and watching and knows I do it. As I get on here and I get on my pulpit and I start preaching about grievances and like, hey, do you want to think? And I'm just trying to give you a perspective, the unsolicited perspectives. The whole reason why I started the show actually is just give people my advice that I think is good advice because I've always been told that I give good advice. And I'm real blunt with people. And a lot of times because of my personality, people take my bluntness and they're not really offended because I kind of do. I kind of give that blunt advice with a sly grin on my face. My favorite emoji on the iPhone is that sly grin. Like I literally use it multiple times in a day. That's kind of my character. That's kind of who I am. I'm telling you the real, but I got a smile on my face. I bring all that up to tell you two stories of people that came to me for advice. They asked for my opinion. They asked for my advice. They knew that I was right and they listened to me. Okay. I have two homegirls, and this is crazy to even think about. I got two homegirls, good friends, not my bestie, but friends enough, good enough friends where they would tell me this. They both got cheated on their boyfriends. Two different guys. They both got cheated on their boyfriends, and their boyfriends burnt them. What do I mean by burnt them? Their boyfriends gave them an STD. One got gonorrhea, one got the chlamydia. And first of all, being cheated on, that's a horrible experience. But being cheated on and given an STD, huh? So one friend calls me and tells me this. No, I actually saw them in person. They tell me about this. And I said, "Oh, okay." And then she was like, "And he broke up with me." I was like, okay." And she says, "What do you think?" I was like, I don't even know why you brought up the fact that he broke up with you. I mean, if he didn't break up with you, you would have broke up with him, right?" Well, what? He cheated on you and gave you an STD, and you still thinking about like being with him? Well, I love him. If that's not some of the dumbest thing that I've ever heard. I mean, can you forgive people for cheating on you? Hey, look, it's happened before in life. But cheating on you and getting back, I think there's an extra sign of extreme disrespect when somebody cheats on you unprotected. And the only ways you can get those STDs is if you're unprotected, right? So they cheated on you unprotected, and you got lucky because you got a curable disease and not that main one. But even HIV, HIV is not what it was in the 90s. But I don't want it, right? My other friend, similar story. Boyfriend cheated on her, burnt her. I can't remember which one got gonorrhea or clap. Doesn't really matter, right? She's known me for decades, decades, right? She also knows how blunt I am and how I don't actually give advice unless somebody asks for it. And the reason why I don't is because I've had several women that I dated. My ex-wife was the queen of this one. I don't know what it is, but I like looking at things and figuring out angles, and I'll tell you how a situation is going to play out. Maybe it's my years of playing chess, but I know the human beings pretty well, and I know situations, and I know how things are going to play out. And there was a lot of times my ex-wife would be telling me a story of something going on at work or her friends or something like that, and I would just sit and listen because when people are talking to you about something that's bothering them, the best thing to do is sit and listen. Don't interject. Don't try to connect by saying, "Oh yeah, that happened to me." Just sit and listen. And I would sit and listen, and I'd be like, "Yeah, I hear what you're saying." Yep, confirming that I'm listening to her, and she would go, "All right, what should I do? Because you always end up being right anyway." I was like, "You sure? You want my advice?" "Yes, because you're just gonna end up being right anyway." "Okay, well, this is what's gonna happen." Sure enough, it's always right. So my friend that's known me for decades, my other friend that told me about her situation doesn't know that about me really, but my other friend that knows me for decades knows that about me. So she told me her situation. Her boyfriend cheated on her. She got a STD, and I was like, "Okay, all right." And she was like, "Okay, so tell me what you think." I was like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "Tell me what you think." And I was like, "Well, you know who I am." She's like, "I know. That's specifically the reason why I called you because I know you're going to give it to me blunt and honest." I was like, "Okay." You rushed into the situation. You shouldn't have rushed into that situation. You put yourself in a bad position by playing family and house before the situation had presented itself. He cheated. You knew that he had a history of that. He cheated. But I can tell by the tone in your voice, you're not going to leave him. "No, I am. I am. I just needed to hear that." I was like, "Okay, I hear what you're saying, but I can tell by the tone in the voice, you're not going to leave him." Guess what, ladies and gentlemen? I check in on her a week later. "Hey, what's the updates? How you doing health wise? Like, how is everything going?" No response. Check in on her again. "Hey, any updates? Did you get my last message?" "What? I have no updates to give you. Nothing new is going on." Kind of get an attitude with me. I'm like, "All right, okay." I already know because I knew the first phone call. Sure enough, on Instagram, a week after that, they're taking happy couple pictures. Hey, look, to each their own. I'm not in their life. They just asked me my opinion. I gave them what was going to happen. I told my other friend, "Hey, you need to distance yourself. This person is toxic," because he was gaslighting. I was like, "You need to delete all of his information from your phone, social media, email, delete it from your phone so that you can't contact him, because she kept putting herself into a fight with him. And I'm like, y'all are broken up, like, and he burnt you. The only time you need to communicate with him is the fact that maybe the antibiotics aren't working like they're supposed to, and he might need to go back to the doctor, right? Like, there's no other reason to communicate. Sure enough, kept going back and fighting. Something bad happened. She had a bad car accident because she was so distraught because he gave some bad advice. And I just looked at her and she said, "What?" I said, I told you nothing good was going to come from communicating when you put yourself in this situation. And I know that wasn't the right thing for me to say at the time. I know it wasn't, but it's the truth. And I know they say sometimes you don't always need to be right, but sometimes people are so hard-headed that you need to beat the truth in them so that they see it, because they can hurt themselves and damage themselves long-term. I told both of my friends, both of them, bluntly, real honestly, hey, look, get yourself out of that situation. Nothing good's going to come from it. I think my one friend is actually going to listen to me now because she got in that car accident, but my other friend, no. And I'm not going to talk to her about it anymore either. I'm not. You got one time to come to me, ask me for my advice. I give you my advice. I tell you, I know you're not in a place to hear me right now, so I know you're going to go do. You defiantly say, no, I'm going to listen to you. I'm going to listen to you. And you go back. That just lets me know that the next time you come to me with the same issue, I'm going to say, I ain't got nothing for you. I feel sorry for you, but I'm not going to talk to you about this anymore. Because you ain't going to bring down my mental health. I tried to help you as a friend. I gave you some blunt ass honesty. Told you the real. And I was right. I know that I'm right. I can feel that I'm right. And I'm not one of those people that always thinks that he's right. I can admit when I'm wrong. I know that I'm right in these scenarios. I know I am. You know why I know? Because it's common sense. And I can't understand the reason why I'm agitated. I can't understand why you can't understand what is easily understandable. That's how I'm like my father. And if you ask me for advice, you better be ready to get that blunt honesty, because I'm going to give it to you real and raw, just like I do on this show. How I talk on this show is how I talk in real life. I'm just going to give it to you. Be truthful, honest, and sincere, but I'm going to give it to you. I don't know what's going to happen with my friends. I wish for them the best. They can't come from me. They can't come to me for no more advice. They can't come for me. No more help. I'm not going to do it. You ain't going to drive my blood pressure through the roof because you being hard-headed. And sometimes you just got to give people that blunt advice so they actually hear you, and they ain't hearing me. So I ain't giving it no more. But Dad, thank you, because your advice actually helped me in one of my situations, in one of my relationships that I'm very happy with. And sometimes that blunt honesty just hit 6 weeks later. And maybe it'll hit my friends 6 weeks later. I don't know. But ladies and gentlemen, my blunt honesty to you, check in on yourself. In a word of Carmine Lupertazzi, be a better friend to yourself. He said that to Tony Soprano. Be a better friend to yourself. Don't think that you can just work your way through whatever issue that you got, especially if it's dealing with childhood trauma. You need help with that. Everybody needs somebody to talk to. Just remember that. That's my blunt honesty. And on that note, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Until next time, as always, I'll holla. Whew. That was a hell of a show. Thank you for rocking with us here on Unsolicited Perspectives with Bruce Anthony. Now, before you go, don't forget to follow, subscribe, like, comment, and share our podcast wherever you're listening or watching it to it. Pass it along to your friends. If you enjoy it, that means the people that you rock will enjoy it also. So share the wealth, share the knowledge, share the noise. And for all those people that say, well, I don't have a YouTube. If you have a Gmail account, you have a YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can actually watch our video podcast. But the real party is on our Patreon page, After Hours Uncensored and Talking Straight-ish. After Hours Uncensored is another show with my sister. And once again, the key word there is uncensored. Those are exclusively on our Patreon page. Jump onto our website at unsolicitedperspectives.com for all things us. That's where you can get all of our audio, video, our blogs, and even buy our merch. And if you're really feeling genuine and want to help us out, you can donate on our donations page. Donations go strictly to improving our software and hardware so we can keep giving you guys good content that you can clearly listen to and that you can clearly see. So any donation would be appreciative. Most importantly, I want to say thank you for listening and watching and supporting us. And I'll catch you next time. Audi 5000. Peace.